It is a good day to you all and welcome to the Breakfast Club right here on Asake. My name is Fungai Mawada. So as you know, and it's been a buzz on social media, there's been a lot of talk about the Electoral Amendment Bill and its implications, with some people saying they're happy that the government is, working in line of trying to amend the electoral bill itself. And some people are against it, in various ways. But to help me talk more about the Electoral Amendment Bill, I'm joined by Heather, who is a Senior Advocacy Officer at ZESN. Good day to you, Heather, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Fungai. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So recently the government gazetted the Electoral Amendment Bill. In your view, what necessitated the gazetting of this bill?
What necessitated the gazetting of this bill is that there is need for electoral reform. Zimbabwe has had contested elections for a very long time. I think this became noticeably more after since the 2000 elections. Before that, they were contested as well, but after 2000, it increased significantly the level of contestations of the results of our elections. And the 2018 elections, they were especially problematic. And after that, we had the results being challenged in court, and they were finally resolved by the Constitutional Court. So this brought about the consensus that there is need for electoral reforms amongst many stakeholders, including civil society organizations, even the Chapter 12 institutions, even electoral players themselves, candidates and other people who have a stake at elections. There are also many other factors necessitating the need for electoral reform, like the need to align the electoral law with the constitution. In Zimbabwe, we have a very good constitution that we drafted and finalized in 2013. But then the electoral law did not align on certain provisions. So the provisions would be in the constitution, but they were not supported by the subsidiary legislation. Then also ensuring that, besides ensuring that electoral laws are in tandem with provisions of the constitutions, we also need to ensure that electoral law in practice is also in line with international conventions, which Zimbabwe is a party to, such as the ACDEC, which is the African Charter on Democracy and Governance. And then also the general need to ensure that elections are free, fair, and credible, and that stakeholders accept the results. And this can only happen when there is less to no disputes and contestations regarding the elections. So I would say that's the background to why we needed that electoral amendment bill, which seeks to improve our electoral landscape.
All right, so what are some of the changes proposed by the bill?
We have many changes. There's the issue of, I think you mentioned in your questions, the issue about the quota system in parliament. We already have that for the women, the 60 seats, non-constituency seats. And then these seats, the provision of these seats, it was supposed to end in the 2023 elections, but it has been further extended for another 10 years. And then we have the issue of youths and women in local authorities. This was brought about by the amendment number 2 bill of Constitutional Amendment number 2 bill of 2021, which introduced the quota system for youths and women. So it has been operationalized in the current electoral bill. So yeah, it's a good move that we now have these quota systems, but then the constituencies themselves, the women and the youth, they're saying these are not enough. 60 seats that have been extended, as well as the 30 seats for women in local authority. The women are saying, we want to have 50-50 with men. So these are 30% and also the 60 out of 270 seats. It's not enough. It does not bring about the 50-50 move. And then the youth are saying we are 67% of the population. So just having 10 seats, the whole country, it's not enough. So yeah, those are some of the changes being proposed by the bill. The women and the youths, yeah.
The bill also proposes the ban on MPs convicted for political violence. What is your view on this issue?
In principle, that is a very good move because we are saying if you are a perpetrator of political violence, you are not fit to hold such an office. So MPs should be of high moral standards. So that is a very reasonable provision and request. But then we are saying that in practice, we found that sometimes there's a selective application of the law, especially when it comes to such issues. So we are saying if it can only be applied equally across the board, then that would be a very good move. Already in this Constitution, sections 125 and 129, they also speak to the same issue about the disqualification of MPs, of which being convicted of political violence, if you check section 129, it's one of the grounds on which an MP can be disqualified. So that provision is only trying to operationalize what is already provided for in the Constitution. It's a good move, but only on condition that it is applied equally.
Okay. So as ZESN, what is your position on this bill? Looking at it, the proposed amendments, what is your position in light of this?
Okay, as ZESN, yeah, we have noticed that we have a number of progressive issues in the bill, but overall, it looks like the bill only addresses certain nominal and administrative reforms, whilst ignoring some of the pertinent reforms that may have a direct bearing on the transparency and the credibility of the election. So it appears as like a half-baked. It's not really comprehensive. If we look at the whole spectrum of the reforms that we have been calling for as ZESN and other stakeholders, if you look at some of the issues that are in the bill, like the removal of the driver's license as a proof of ID for voting and registration, that is purely nominal because throughout our work as ZESN, we've observed that ZEC has always been declining the driver's license as proof of identity. So it's something that has already been taken care of. So we are calling upon the government as ZESN to adopt a holistic approach to electoral reform, taking into account the Constitution of Zimbabwe and then international best practices, SADC principles and the guidelines governing democratic elections, African Charter on Democracy and Governments, the ACDEC, as well as recommendations made by election observer missions that were there in the 2018 harmonized elections. So we need the bill to be more comprehensive than it is right now.
In essence, what are some of the issues and amendments and reforms that you feel should have been included in this bill? Looking at it, like you're talking about, they need to look at it holistically, and including all of these charters. So in light of your position as observers, essentially, what should be done to these amendments, essentially?
Okay, I think there's need to add more issues that are currently outstanding. Like if we look at the right to vote and inclusivity, where we are saying everyone has the right to vote, and there's need to include all stakeholders from different walks of life to be able to vote. So if we look at section 67 of our Constitution, it provides for that right for all citizens of Zimbabwe. And this includes even people who are currently not resident in Zimbabwe, but are citizens. We have noted that this right has not been fully embraced by our legal framework, except for the Constitution. We have millions of citizens that are in the diaspora, but they're excluded from voting of course, except those that are on state service. We have people in hospitals during on polling day. We have not only those who are sick, but even those who are the doctors and the nurses, those who are on duty. Sometimes they are not able to cast their vote. We have people in prisons. We have even other areas of service where people are working on election day. And we are saying there's need to come up with mechanisms to ensure that all those people have, they manage to cast their vote, because they are currently decentralized. Then we have the issues of traditional leaders. If we look at our constitution, section 281, it states that traditional leaders must not act in a partisan manner. But throughout our history, we have always seen and heard of traditional leaders being partisan and even pronouncing some partisan declarations and statements of who they fought for or who they are loyal to. Our law is not really clear on how to define the role of traditional leaders in the elections and electoral processes. So that is why the traditional leaders have always had that leeway, because there's no law that restrains them. So we also want that to be embraced in our. And then the issue of the media, the provisions regulating the media, there's need for provisions which clearly state measures aimed to prevent the abuse of the right to access to public broadcasting services, not only public, even the private, because in our constitution, there's supposed to be regulation of both the private and the public media. So the law should be able to prescribe the manner in which political advertising may be carried out in the media and other issues that are election and politically related. There's the issue of, I've spoken about the inclusion of youth and the women. Yes. There are also other groups that are vulnerable, like the people with disabilities. There's also, if you look, the women and the youth have their quotas, but the PWDs do not have a quota. So there's also a need for a mechanism and a formula also to make sure that the PWs are embraced and are also included in electoral processes. Yeah, I've spoken of the quota system. There's not really to ensure that there's the implementation of what is on paper, because sometimes we have formulas and everything on paper, but the implementation is lacking. So need for more provisions to sanction electoral violence, because that is also what also affects women and other vulnerable groups. And this is what prevents them from participating in elections. Yeah, those are some of our recommendations.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that, Heather. I mean, like, this really has been an enlightening interview. And I hope that, you know, someone within the means will actually take this up in terms of, you know, enacting them in terms of amending the electoral amendment bill. And for those of you at home who haven't yet read about it or haven't taken interest in it, I'd advise you to go ahead and take interest and to read the seeing as how voting is our basic right. So Heather, thank you so much once again for joining us right here on the Breakfast Club. And thank you so much for dropping so many gems for us as well. And to you at home, thank you so much for joining us once again on the Breakfast Club. Make sure you join us again, same time right here. Don't forget to like and to follow us on our social media platforms, right? Site ZW on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, as well as on Twitter. From myself, Fungai, and the team behind the scenes, it is goodbye.